Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Spotlight on Addiction and Recovery. I'm your host, Scott Jones. Thanks for joining us, and I want to remind you, while you're watching this show, if you find us something that you like, make sure you like us and share us with your friends. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the ATC Network, and make sure that you click the notification so that you'll know when we develop new shows. We're always having new shows, and it's always about addiction, recovery, and living the sober life. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining us again. I've got a great friend of mine, Raul Maurice, who is from Delphi Treatment Center. But we met different from there. We met at one of the trainings, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
What'd you think of the training? Well, you went to the Certified Interventionist training.
Correct, yeah. It was great. I learned a lot. It offered me a lot of insight on tools and resources that I kind of already had, but put them together in a real order that really lets me help, more people.
Entertaining?
Yeah, it was, definitely.
It was.
Yeah.
And I was the best one?
Yeah, a lot of laughs.
Thank you.
Yeah, some good jokes. Good jokes.
Yeah, I mean, Karen was good, but, hey, it's me. No, if it was her show, she would be the best. It's no big deal. Anyway, no, it was cool to have you there. But I wanted to learn more about you and what you do. I mean, first of all, you're working in the treatment industry, okay, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody. It's full of heartbreak. It's full of, even there's bad characters out there. There's full of it's a tough business. Why are you doing this?
I became passionate about recovery because I've struggled with addiction myself. And in recovery as a whole, I've lived a life that has like a morally skewed compass. And in recovery, I've learned to become a more righteous person, as well as more caring and compassionate to help others. So that's just kind of what drove me towards the industry.
Morally skewed compass. That's a really nice way of saying you were probably a real pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, I can admit it that I wasn't a great person.
Right.
I cared more about myself than anybody else, and in many ways, I've made a lot of changes. So
you struggled through your own addiction.
Yes.
Drugs, alcohol, both.
At one stage, different seasons, it was different substances. So, but towards the end, what really got a hold of me was, specifically drugs,
right.
Cocaine and heroin. So,
now, did all this happen down here in Florida, or were you somewhere else?
No, so locally here to Florida, it took about a 4-year course of real hardcore addiction that really kind of brought me to my knees. Landed me in an incarcerated situation with a 20-month prison sentence, and that's really where my transformation started with my mindset. I picked up a big book, I picked up a Bible, and I never put the Bible down, and I've gained so much more insight as to who I am and who I want to be.
Raul, I think one of the things that people would like to know, either because they're thinking about their own addiction or somebody that they love, what was that moment? Or was there a moment, or maybe not like a big flashing light, although it happens for some, but was there something that finally triggered in you and said, this isn't for me, I need something different? I mean, you say you went to jail, but was there a specific thing was it the loss of freedom? Was it just the fear of what's next? What was it for you, do you think?
To be honest, getting free from the bondage of addiction, I mean, as much as it hurt to struggle through detox and incarceration, eventually I felt more freedom being incarcerated and being liberated from addiction, that I realized that I wanted to change my life. I started to cherish my sober mind. Once that fog was removed from my, mental status, I realized that this is something I want to hold on to and never want to lose again.
See, now that's tough because you didn't have an epiphany before the detox. You needed it out of your system to have that moment of, hey, I can do something different.
Yeah. Yep.
So, it's almost like it was forced upon you and then you accepted it.
Right.
That's a tough pill to swallow for anybody out there to say, you've almost got to hit that bottom
right.
and have something happen for that to happen for you, right?
Agreed, yeah. I always, everybody's got a different rock bottom. And depending on what your spiritual understanding, that's just God's grace upon you. He gets you to a place where he can hold you still long enough for you to, come to that breakthrough. Just with the series of events that happened, I realized at that point that this wasn't a life I wanted to lead anymore.
So what process did you follow? Obviously, being incarcerated when you started this process makes it a little different than others. But what process did you start as far as getting help and the things that you did for you?
I did a lot of reading, a lot of spiritual reading. I'm a Christian, so I believe in Christian beliefs. A lot of principles that are out of the Bible mirror a lot of principles that are in recovery, and even 12-step. So just starting to learn those things. Once I was released from my incarceration, I reached out for help for somebody that I knew that had, long-term recovery, and asked them for direction. And the direction I got was to do sober living to hold myself accountable. And once I got to sober living, it was pick up a 12-step program and get yourself connected to the community, the recovery community.
And how did you end up working within that community? I mean, did it just kind of met somebody kind of thing? Or?
It was a series of events that just happened in life. For some reason, it was put on my heart to want to not be part of the problem, but more part of the solution. And I had never considered treatment. Like I said, my rehab looked like a jail cell. Yeah. So I never considered going to treatment, never been to treatment myself. The thought had never crossed my mind when I was in active addiction. But I realized that I became compassionate to want to help, and I knew this was a place where you can help people. So I asked a lot of people how to get into the industry, and not getting a whole lot of direction, I decided to reach out to a local facility, and I offered to do an internship. And then after a few weeks of an internship, I got offered a position, and that was roughly about 2 years ago at this point. And it's just been an awesome opportunity to be able to help change other people's lives.
Now, your position, and again, this is with Delphi right now. Does it bring you into contact? What kind of things are you doing? Are you in contact with people looking for help, or?
Yeah, I mean, the position really is to touch base with organizations that can offer you opportunities to help people, and then individually, I get to reach out to people on an individual basis, just to people from the recovery community or people that get referred to me, and I get to have those conversations to try to motivate their recovery and encourage them. I share my testimony as to, what I've been through, to how relatable it is and how hopeless it can feel, and then offer them a little bit of hope.
So I imagine you've got a nice pocket full of success stories that you carry with you that keep you motivated, obviously. Mm-hmm. But there's also those hardship stories, those ones that don't work out. And unfortunately, listen, I'm not going to pump any sunshine up anybody's skirt. We're dealing with a deadly disease here. And how do you balance that?
It's tough. When I first broke into the industry, I talked to a pastor that was a part of my life and still is, and he told me to really be prepared for the heartbreaks, because as much as you set your heart on helping people, it doesn't always work out. You're not necessarily the right person to help them, and you're going to see some things that are going to hurt. But I try to always just focus on the positives, the people that are the success stories. Like you said, this is a very deadly disease. I get constant reminders, and those are the things that kind of help keep me sober. And those are the things that I use to just try to keep it balanced. Try to focus more on the positive and realize that, you don't get upset with an individual that fails. It's the disease of addiction. So I get angry with the disease of addiction more than the person.
One of the things that I like to share with people, and I'm sure you would agree, is that one of the things about working in an industry like this is that you get to be a part of miracles every day. Mm. You don't get to choose which ones are going to receive the miracle. You don't get to, that's not really in our hands. We could try to facilitate as much as we can. But there are miracles to be had, and there's miracles that we're a part of. Do you find that really just kind of fulfilling your spirit in some way?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a gratification that's selfishly all my own,
Yeah.
You can't share it with anybody, and I don't do it with motivations or intentions of getting that reciprocate. But when I do see it work out, and I see somebody get sustained recovery, see somebody get to have their children back in their life, or start to reconnect with their family and make those family relationships and bonds again, it feels great to have been a part of it, but it's just a small part, because the biggest participant in any recovery is that single person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, without naming any names, do you have, I like to call it like that picture on the fridge, when your kid comes home with a great project, you put it up on the fridge. Do you have one of those you carry with you about somebody who really touched your heart, that you saw change, that just kind of, even when those dark moments, when it doesn't work out, you can think back and say, oh yeah, this person really had an impact, and this is why I do it. Can you think of any particular ones that really impacted you?
This might sound kind of selfish, but myself,
Okay.
I realize that I've had opportunities to make poor decisions, and I've been able to balance that out with the system and the solution, whether it's a 12-step solution or a spiritual solution that I always turn towards. instead of giving in to poor decision making. And I try to use myself as an example. It's one of the things that I constantly stayed in prayer about while I was incarcerated, was to let my life be an example to others that, there is hope. So
Actually, you say it's a selfish. It's actually one of the best answers I've had. Is that you can motivate yourself because of your own experience. You don't have to get it from someone else, but we still do. We still do get great moments from others. Certainly. You're coming from a place of, tell me about, family and what happened there with your addiction and where it stands now and those kind of things.
Yeah. I don't know how to even really approach it, but my whole entire family is, they didn't get to see this side of my addiction. My family is deceased. So by the time I had gotten to a point where, substances really began to affect my life, I didn't really have a family outlet to turn to. I have friends that I hold close to me that reached out to me seeing my life deteriorate. But those are the same people that I've turned back to, post my incarceration. And they've really supported me along the way here.
Well, as a spiritual person that I know that you are, I know that even, those who have passed on, we still carry a message for them in how we live today. Do you kind of feel that you're kind of carrying that on and doing the right things?
Absolutely. When somebody that you love, is deceased, you still think about if they can see you or see your failures and your disappointments. And as much as that has happened in my life, I've been able to redeem myself by this point by, being able to help others and by the way I'm living my life now.
Now, I want to talk about your treatment center, but I do have to ask, spending time incarcerated, do you have anything that you do that kind of gives back and looks at people who have those kind of records? Do you have like a special place in your heart for people who have been in that situation?
Absolutely, I do. I actually operate a sober living home on Vero Beach as well, and I always like to give opportunities that second chance. I get phone calls from the local, jails, as well as sometimes institutions that are, actual prisons, saying that they have somebody that's going to be released, that's court ordered, or is looking for a place and an opportunity. So knowing that my life was built off of a second chance after incarceration, I always like to extend that offer.
Unfortunately, with an addiction or an alcohol problem or whatever it might be, it's kind of a strike against you in some ways when you're going out and trying to find help.
Yeah.
You add ex-con on top of that, or somebody who's been convicted or anything. That's like, okay, now we're adding another strike. Mm-hmm. So you like to just start with a clean slate and give people an opportunity, which is really good.
Yeah, it's tough. That so many strikes against you, is difficult, but you either have to find an opportunity because, like I said, I let my life be a testimony where I have an industry where I work in that offers me, a satisfiable salary and helps me to help other people. There's always a way to either find an opportunity or create it yourself,
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I want to talk about Delphi and your sober living and some other things, but I'm really interested in your life now. It's been some years now. You've been, let's say, walking a path that is healthier and happier and certainly more spiritual and a better path. Mm-hmm. Do you enjoy your life?
I absolutely do. Yeah, I do. It's
you
fun.
have fun?
It's fun. You got to have fun when you're, staying sober. If you don't, it's not going to be worth it, So, whether it's enjoying a fine meal or going out to a comedy show, keeping company with people that are like-minded, you'll find ways to have good fun.
Thank you for doing that, because I find that's one thing that sometimes is lacking when you talk to people about recovery and they talk about the work. Every day you got to work at it. If you don't have something that lights you up, though, mm-hmm. you're not going to do it. Why would you?
Man.
Why would you work at something that doesn't give you a reward? So was there any kind of things when you came out and you started and you're like, wow, man, this is kind of stupid. Then you end up loving it. Do you have those moments where it's like, yeah, I'm not a fun guy. I'm not going to do that. And then you turn out, you seem like a really happy guy.
Yeah. Even things that I got plugged into, like the recovery community, at first I was a little apprehensive because you walk into a room with a lot of other addicts that are just as insane as you are. And everybody seems happy. And sometimes you're like, is this fake? This has got to be a facade. Nobody's really this happy. They talk about things in recovery, like the pink cloud and all the happiness and joy in the first year because things are starting to be renewed and brought back to in front of you that are worth it. But as wild as it sounds, once you start to apply a program of recovery, your life does get better, and you do get that happy, and it's not fake. It's not a facade.
We did silly things. Well, of course, I worked with I got sober with a lot of people who rode motorcycles. We would do that stuff, but we would do dumb things. We'd go bowling, and we'd go hang out at the beach, or we'd go. I picked up golfing, and I certainly got back into music, and I played music and did all that. But I found joy in so many different areas, so that the work I have to do every day to maintain my sobriety now becomes a labor of love and a labor of joy, and it's no longer work. It just becomes a part of what I want.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really good. Now tell me, you're working at Delphi. Tell me about Delphi.
So Delphi is a national provider for substance abuse as well as mental health. We have facilities all over the country. We accept a range of insurances, regardless of, in-network or out-of-network. We can just help a lot of people. I'm pretty new to the company, as though I am pretty familiar with the facilities, and I know that, they're a trusted leader in the community as far as recovery goes and treatment services go.
Now, you say is it all over the country at this point? I mean, they got a lot of locations or something?
Yeah, they have 15 locations. So there's 4 locations in Florida here locally, as well as we have Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and California. None of the facilities are overgrown like you see with, these 100-plus bed facilities.
Yeah.
Client care kind of drops when you get so many people into a facility. So our facilities, a lot of them are smaller. The highest census capacity, I think, at one is like 60, and some of them are usually around the range of 20 and under.
Yeah.
So it lets us really focus on the client, not the mass volume of helping people, because then some things get lost in that translation.
Absolutely. We've seen these places, and, it's unfortunate where, somebody might not have the opportunity to see their therapist more than once or twice in a month, and everybody's a number. Nobody knows names. But when you get that sweet spot, that 20 to 30, kind of thing, that's when you really know everybody, and you can staff them properly and help them.
Right.
So that's really good. Do some of these locations, do they specialize in certain kinds of treatment or certain populations?
Yeah, so we do have gender-specific facilities. All of them are.
You don't do any of the co-eds?
No co-ed, no. I mean,
that's a smart idea, actually.
And it really is. I've realized in my own recovery that there's a reason why you separate those things, because relationships are tough enough in their own thing, and if you get focused, your priorities shift.
Yeah.
So
sober 100 years, people, relationships are still tough, so we don't need to bring them in at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, one of the facilities that we have is an all-female facility, and it's all female staffed. And they specifically focus on trauma, which I think that is really, really a resource to the recovery community, because, sometimes there's things that just really help people out more specifically, like that particular facility. I think that really offers a lot to the females in this community. I
think it's highly important. I love the gender-specific treatment, for guys and girls as well, certainly because... hey, listen, guys, we tend to talk differently when we're in front of females, and females tend to act differently or talk but it does happen.
Right.
And especially if you're dealing with trauma or fear or discomfort or insecurities, it's difficult to do that in front of the opposite sex. Plus, I think in most cases, we don't know how to be friends with same-sex people, and it's important that we build those bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
recovery is all about relearning a lot of things, even relearning how to be in a relationship and actually respect yourself, learn your worth and value, and what you deserve and how you deserve to be treated is all part of it. One of the things, too, that I see pretty often is that you see somebody's self-care start to regenerate, where somebody starts to take care of themselves, physically, and once you start to care about yourself a little bit more, you look for, validation from other people. But when you get it from the opposite sex, it can kind of get you misconstrued and pointed in the wrong direction. So I love the fact that we're gender specific.
Is there anything else about Delphi that got you excited about working with them?
The focus that they have just on primary mental health as well. Working in the industry, I see that as such a huge factor that seems like it kind of goes without a large resource and availability for just primary mental health. A lot of times the substance abuse is just a symptom of the mental health issues. So
right.
Seeing that and starting to understand that more now, I love the fact that I have an opportunity to try to help people that just struggle with primary mental health.
That's something years ago they weren't thinking along those lines, and I'm glad people are now, because whether it's a primary issue or a secondary issue, if you don't help the mental health issue, the addiction will creep back in no matter what you do, because it's the mental health is always going to want to draw on something to self-medicate and to deal those things. So to hear people saying that this is really a focus for us is really hopeful for people, and it's good that we're thinking along those lines. How does somebody get more information or get in touch with Delphi? Is there like one number, and then they'll help you figure out where your best place to be is?
So, I mean, one of the ways you can do is go online and look us up. We have an admissions line that you can call in directly to, or you can reach out to me directly. My personal contact number is 772-634-4588. I'm always welcoming and anybody that wants to just have a conversation or explore options for yourself or for a loved one.
So we're going to put your number up on the screen, and certainly if somebody has any questions about Delphi or about addiction in general, you invite their phone calls, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Do you find that this becomes more than a job, that it is really a calling at this point?
Absolutely. You realize that there's responsibilities that I never really like missing a phone call, because I don't know if that could have been somebody that could have helped. And even when I get missed phone calls, sometimes I call back the guy that's trying to call me and sell me my insurance warranty or my car warranty 1,000 times a day. But if I miss his call, I call him back, because I don't know, he might be looking for help. But yeah, there is a duty that you carry with this, whether it's 2:00 in the morning or you always answer your phone, because it could be somebody that you can help change your life.
Yeah. I think I wish I had answered the phone. When you lose somebody, it's probably a horrible feeling. So it's a good thing that there are people like you that are dedicated to that. And I encourage you, give them a call, even if you just got a simple question, right? I mean, just because they call you doesn't mean you're trying to sell them treatment.
No.
You want to answer questions and be there for people.
Yeah, there's plenty of resources out there. I mean, whether it's a loved one, I've talked to mothers, I've talked to family members that just don't know what to do. Sometimes there's not insurance or the resources to pay for treatment, but there's always resources available. Luckily, I've been able to tap into a lot of resources, regardless of somebody's insurance status or ability to pay. I've offered, many solutions for a lot of people. That's one of the big things is, you just have to be plugged into the community to be able to help people get in the right direction. Sometimes it's just sober living is a good decision, holding somebody accountable. They're just starting to slip up. They're just starting to see those behaviors and those old character defects return to their life. So maybe sometimes just getting plugged back into that community is what, get them back on track.
Now, I want to talk about your sober living, and I want to encourage people to ask about Delphi, but you did bring something up, and I have to touch on it, because we're getting a lot of this out there right now with moms and dads or close family members, husbands, wives, maybe even sons and daughters looking at their parents with a problem. But they're on the outside of the problem. They're looking at it, and they don't know what to do. There's 1,000 different words of advice out there. You need professional help. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to hire an interventionist. And if an interventionist is charging you $10,000, don't do it. Yeah. Just don't do it, because they're not about the right thing. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Agreed.
If they need to cover some expenses and some, that's fine. But don't get involved in it. But what do you tell a family member? Let's say mom calls. I'm sure you probably had these. Mom calls really concerned about their son, Bobby, and he's going off the deep end, and he's getting violent, and he won't listen to her. What can you say to a parent who is so scared and don't know what to do?
I try to offer.
I don't mean to put you on a spot like that, but,
No. When you talk to a parent or loved one, you always just try to offer them some hope. I often share my own testimony. And, the real first question for anybody that is struggling with dealing with somebody that's struggling with substance abuse is, does that person want help? Do they recognize that their life is becoming unmanageable and starting to deteriorate, and are they ready to take the extended offer that, we can make for them and take the suggestions that are going to be put in place for them? That's really where it starts. And a lot of times when I ask that question, have you spoken to your son or daughter about, treatment or sober living or any of these options? And usually the response is yes. And yeah, they say they're open to it, but there's always apprehensions because they're not necessarily certain what they're walking into.
Right.
And that's where we come in. We're the people that can offer those answers and explain, like, no, it's not an institution. No, it's not a hospital setting. These are the freedoms that you'll have. You'll be able to smoke cigarettes. You'll have access to this or whatever it is that they have in their own hang-ups in their mind to be resistant to those choices, making those next steps of action. So, those really kind of the direction that I try to take with everybody that recalls is, have we said that, they're open to a solution, and if they are, let's make a plan and put in a plan of action for that person.
Now, have you had the call where they call out and they say, listen, they know they got a problem. I know they got a problem, but they're refusing to do anything about it. What do I do?
Yeah.
Do I leave him in the house? I mean, those are tough calls to handle.
Those are really tough calls because those are the emotional ones. I mean, trying to tell a mother that she needs to, cut off financial resources and tell him, no, he can't stay at home, and don't offer him money. And, don't get manipulated by the disease, because that's what it is. Where a loving mother thinks like her child's on the street, that sounds terrible. He's not eating. That's what they think about. But any resource you offer them, whether it's a gift card or cash, we as addicts manipulate those into finding a resources to get high. So, really just trying to guide them to think rationally from experience and to try to remove some of that emotion and tell them, listen, as terrible as it sounds, incarceration might be the best thing that happens. As long as we don't die, there's still an opportunity for us to get help.
Yeah, tough love is like an oversimplification of what we're talking about here. This is every fiber of your being is screaming to protect them.
Right.
When the more you protect them, the closer you're bringing them to a worse bottom than they could possibly imagine. Right.
Yeah. One of the things I heard is you can't deny somebody their rock bottom. And I don't have children, so I couldn't relate. I know it'd be more difficult, with somebody that you truly care about and love. But being in it, somebody would have denied me my rock bottom, I wouldn't be here helping somebody now.
Exactly.
So that's what I always try to offer them. I think everybody has a story and a purpose. If you've lived through these adversities of addiction, you come out the other side, you're here to help somebody else.
So tell me about this sober living. I mean, it's first of all, you're answering your phone 24/7. You're working with Delphi. You're helping people that way. So you got to add something else to your plate.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you're sober, you're a little bit crazy too.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
So I have it's an 8-bed men facility. We're all guys. I believe in a program of AA, so there is an implemented mandatory meetings that you have to make. Suggestions, get a sponsor. And just living in an accountability setting is part of the solution. Treatment, as much of a value as it has, those connections beyond that are what's going to keep you sober. So building those connections to the recovery community with other sober guys that are in the same mindset of you, those first stages of recreating your life and your identity in recovery are all very important. So doing that with people that you can relate to is critical to your recovery.
Absolutely. I truly believe. I mean, unless you have a treatment center that can keep somebody for a year to 2 years, you can't build a strong enough bond for them to do it on their own, and even then, I don't know. But definitely when you're in treatment, and if you're lucky, you're getting 30, 60, 90 days in treatment to turn around a lifetime of habits, attitudes, and thoughts and compulsions. You need a strong network, and to have things like a sober living to go into. Now, there's a lot of sober livings out there that don't operate very well. We know this.
Right.
So research them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But having a sober living to go into it and building fellowship of like-minded people and people who support you, that's the real key.
Yeah,
I mean, the treatment center can only give you the tools so when you get out there, you can use them, but you need the support system.
Yeah, that's where you start living sober, and that's a whole different ball game where temptation will start to fall back in, old behaviors will fall back in, old relationships, people from your past are going to show back up,
Yeah.
Sometimes those are incredibly toxic to your recovery, so you have to learn how to build boundaries. And when you get challenged with that first, this isn't a person that's going to be conducive to my recovery, I need to put a boundary up. That's living in recovery. Those are the things that are going to keep you sober.
So if I understand this right, part of your recovery, the beginning of your recovery was while you were incarcerated. So it's almost like being in rehab in a sense. You said something about that, but then you step outside, you got total freedom. Was it difficult for you, or did you have moments where you really had to really knuckle down and force yourself to make sure you did the right things? Did sometimes it creep in? I don't feel like doing that today. I don't feel like doing that.
I got lucky. I look at how the dots connected in my life, and I've always been a strong-willed person, but incarceration will break your will. When you get in, they shave your head. They tell you when you eat. They tell you when you sleep. They tell you to get in your bed. So when you can use the showers. So with your will in that state, coming out and getting told to, this is what we're doing. It's sober living. It's a 12-step program. It's a sponsor. It's all these things that were required of me. I just latched onto it because I had been groomed to just do what you're told to do. I got lucky because I don't think 4 years prior to that, I could have done it, and I probably even struggle to start from that point today because as human nature goes, we start to grab our will back. So
Certainly.
I got lucky. That's just the way that the events happened in my life, and I look at prison as the best thing that ever happened to me. As crazy as that sounds, the first time I ever said that out loud, it really gave me a place to transform, and it just put the pieces of the puzzle in place for me to hold on to what I have.
That's an amazing story, and to have that piece where it's like you took what could have broken you and made you probably go deeper into the lifestyle that you were heading towards, that you were living in. Mm-hmm. You could have gone deeper into that. And we've seen that many times with people who get incarcerated. They come out worse than when they went in, angrier and everything else. No. Somehow there was a conscious decision there that you took what could have been the worst thing and turned it into your savior.
Yeah.
You know, what do you credit that to?
My higher power. My higher power, Jesus Christ. I mean, that's where it was really at.
Right.
Like I said, I picked up 2 big books when I was in there. One was the Bible. I never put it down. I still read it every day. So, and it talks about transformation. It talks about a new mindset, a renewing of the mind. And once I saw those words on paper, they just spoke to me. And I realized I wanted to be my brother's keeper. I wanted to, help people and be more compassionate towards, humankind. So
you really had a spiritual awakening.
Absolutely, yes.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I gotta wonder. Maybe I'm wrong, but I gotta wonder if how many opportunities in our lives have we had if we were just open that much, that it was just right there waiting for us, that awakening, that moment. Mm-hmm. But we fought so hard to turn away from it.
Yeah.
Think about how many times that I went driving drunk and I could have died or killed someone else. And that was a miraculous moment because I don't have any memory of driving that vehicle down a road at 80 miles an hour drunk, but nobody got hurt and I got home safely. That's a miracle moment. And if I were open enough to grasp that and say, something's carrying me, something's got me,
right,
it could have been miraculous. But so many people miss that moment. I'm so pleased that you did not.
Yeah. I feel at this point in my my spiritual journey that we all have a purpose that is outlined from the beginning to the end, from the end to the beginning. And everything that happens is happening in the time that it's supposed to happen. Everything that happened in my life, to the incarceration, to where I ended up for sober living, to the opportunities that have presented themselves to open a career for me, have all happened by God's grace. There's no way, as sophisticated as it looks, if you break it down, it's a plan, and it had nothing to do with me. So
that's incredible. Raul, I want to thank you for coming in and talking about all this stuff. So again, give them your phone number one more time.
My contact number is 772-634-4588. And feel free to reach out to me if you just want to have a conversation or you're interested in treatment options.
Yeah, or maybe maybe you have somebody in treatment and you think that maybe the aftercare that you have, the sober living you have, or even the guidance that you might be able to give them would be helpful.
Absolutely.
These are the kind of guys where one person gets sober and there's like a multitude of people following them, and you're one of those people, and I want to thank you for that. You're a good man.
Thank you for having me.
All right, brother.